Welcome to the Susan LoPresti Wellness Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. This is your go-to space for midlife and mature women who are ready to reclaim their health, boost their energy, and live long, vibrant, and purposeful lives. Each week, we dive deep into holistic healing, natural wellness, anti-aging strategies, and healthy lifestyle habits to help you feel your best physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whether you're navigating menopause, working through chronic conditions, or simply wanting to age gracefully and intentionally, this show is your sanctuary for science-backed insights, powerful stories, and soul nourishing inspiration. So, if you're a woman over 40 or 50 or older looking to thrive in the next chapter of your life, you're in the right place. Today's episode is a refreshingly honest conversation about midlife, the kind that most women wish someone had years ago. My guest is Angela Burk. She is the author of The Bold and Unapologetic Real Girl's Guide to Midlife. Angela is on a mission to dismantle the glossy, sanitized narrative that women are often fed about aging gracefully and replace it with something far more powerful. And that's the truth. Her book is not a guide to getting everything right. Instead, it's a companion for getting real. It's for women who are tired of shrinking themselves, settling for less, and waiting for permission to live boldly. Angela shares her own deeply personal journey of reinvention after divorcing at age 45 while raising three young boys. She rebuilt her life from the ground up, eventually creating a blended family of seven children and discovering the fierce confidence that often arrives during midlife, the kind that only comes after navigating life's biggest transitions. In Real Girl's Guide to Midlife, Angela tackles the topics most books only whisper about: the emotional roller coaster of menopause, friendships that change or fall away, dating and relationships in midlife, the physical realities of our changing bodies, and those late night moments when we wonder what the next chapter of life will really look like. It's through her honesty and also her humor, Angela reminds us that midlife isn't the beginning of the end. It can actually be the beginning of the most authentic and empowered chapter of our lives. This is a conversation about reclaiming your voice, embracing your evolution, and finally living life on your terms. Please join me in welcoming Angela Burk to the Susan LoPresti Wellness Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. Angela, thank you so much for joining today. I am so excited to have you here. I loved your book, loved it.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm thrilled to be here with you.
You're welcome. It's my honor, my pleasure. I want to start with your book, The Real Girl's Guide to Midlife, right? It's described as brutally honest. That's the way you described it. What made you decide to write the book that completely shatters like that whole glossy, polite narrative around aging gracefully?
Yeah. I'll give you the background is I actually had this book idea when I was 35. And
Oh,
the book was going to be called The Real Girl's Guide to Over 35. And because I was struggling at that time, I was at a career crossroads. I had two of my three kids. I was in a marriage that I think that there were probably some cracks in. I noticed that my appearance was starting to change. I just felt like everything was swirling around me. And 20 years ago, I looked around, and this is before social media and a lot of the things, and everybody seemed to have everything together. And so I sketched out this book idea, and then life just got busy. And I don't know if you remember those old time like file folders.
Yes.
That's where my book ideas were. And 20 years later, I retired and I was cleaning out a really small pile on my desk and I found the folder, is basically what happened. And I looked at the folder and I was like, wow, turns out a lot of the things I was struggling with then, I still am. I have a whole new list of things
Yeah.
that I feel like I'm struggling with. And some of the things that felt so heavy for me at that time, I lived through. And that was the thing. There were just not a lot of people talking. And I really wrote the book to surface the struggles, to name them out loud. And for me personally, it gave me a lot of affirmation and validation because I heard from so many women who had similar experiences. And I had the pleasure of meeting so many experts that lended their voice. And so it made me feel again like I needed to feel back then that I wasn't alone and I wasn't crazy.
Yes. And many women feel very isolated during that time. And you're
Oh,
afraid to speak up and voice what the hell is going on.
it's so true because what for me, a lot of the things that come with that, when you're dealing with a lot of things in the reality of midlife, right? And there's no magic decade, this is just a period of time. Changes come at us so quickly.
Yes.
And they all happen at the same time. And when nobody's talking about it, nobody's sharing it, you're looking around. For me personally, I looked around, I was like, everybody just seems to be so shiny and perfect. The problem has to be me. And then with that comes a lot of that self-doubt, shame, embarrassment, guilt, feeling like I'm not doing something right. So it was really affirming
Yeah.
to realize I was never alone and I was never falling apart. There were times I felt like it, but I was never alone
Right.
in what I was dealing with.
And many women feel that midlife is supposed to be a time where we settle down and things become more, but actually, it's the complete opposite of that. Everything changes. And I know for me, myself, when I was like 47, 45, 47, I found a voice that I never used before.
Mm,
And I was
yeah.
letting people know I wasn't happy
Yeah.
and but a lot of people a lot of women have that misconception that life is supposed to settle down and get easier, and actually I think it's the opposite. What was
Yeah.
your personal, like one personal wake up moment for
Yeah.
yourself?
There were a lot of wake up moments, but
Yeah.
like you, my mid 40s were a decade of massive change. And it was right around the time I was 45. My ex-husband and I made the decision to divorce, and it wasn't like this big dramatic ending or something that was super point in time. It was just we sat down and I had the forethought and the ability to look at my life and go, is this making me happy? And had the courage to ask him the same question. And where we both came to was like, we could be happier. And that wasn't what we wanted to model for our boys. We had 3 boys by then. So there was that. I took a massive career risk by leaving a really financially stable company and going to a startup. Unbeknownst to me at that time, I was also about 2 years away from entering menopause. So my cycles were all over the map in my mid 40s, and I exited my 47th year with no period. But at that time, I had no idea how close I was. So all of these things were changing for me, and I found my voice. I got the courage to admit things to myself first and then to other people, all with the backdrop of everything around me changing. And I'm trying to settle into being a single mom. And I'm trying to reestablish myself at a new company. But I realized like I could not live the way I was living before. And the impetus for change was partially me,
Yeah.
but also I realized I had to model different for my kids. So I would say that's probably a series of moments that kind
Yeah.
of coincided in this time frame that felt super destabilizing for sure, but also like an awakening in other ways.
Yeah. Without a doubt. It's a freeing feeling. What do you think was the hardest part for you personally of starting over?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think the hardest part for me was probably a little bit of the fear and a little bit of the grief. Okay. Because here's
Yeah.
what happens, right? We can grieve a lot of things. We could grieve identities. We could grieve appearance. Let's just be real. Our appearance
Yes.
changes as we get older. We can grieve relationships that end. We can grieve the life that we thought we were going to live.
Yeah.
And so I had a picture of what my life was going to look like.
Same.
And I also held on with like white knuckles this idea that for my boys, I wanted to give them that intact family. But it cost me something big, and that was a happy Angela. And so I think it was probably the fear and the guilt and the grief associated with the changes, and somehow feeling like change meant I failed.
Mm.
That these changes meant I failed. And so the good news is like I had to sit in that for a bit of time. And yet at the same time, I was able to navigate through it because I knew I had to model something different for my kids.
Yes.
So I think that I want to say it was like partially about me, but also partially about modeling something different for the kids. And then having to let go of some of that guilt and fear and a sense of failure
Mm.
because the changes were massive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And many women probably listening to this podcast will feel stuck in their life at this point, right?
Mm,
That they've outgrown the
mm,
years that they've been together. What helped you find like the courage
mm.
to torch your script, let's say,
Yeah.
that you've been living? What was the one defining moment that you feel like I had to make this change?
I think so. I'll probably say that there were several things that were happening at one time, but I'll give you the perspective that
Okay.
changed for me. Number one, I don't know about you, but I grew up with this phrase, a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And it was like somehow, and coupled with the fact that my mom and I are 19 years apart. So for me, a lot of the things that I saw her go through, I was like trying to create as much distance for myself as I could because I was like, wow, that's old lady stuff. Like, I want no part of that. But when I look back, and I start to see the perspective that I had at the time that was building for me. It was things like I started to not feel like the life I was living was mine. I started to not recognize my place in it. Like I was just existing. And I was carrying all these things that were responsibilities that nobody really even asked me to carry, but somehow through this wiring of my life and my view of certain things as a child, I just carried. And I started to feel like the very best parts of me that I always loved were
Yeah.
disappearing. And I knew I was seeing these signs, right? Other really practical signs were things like I would find myself saying yes to things I wanted to say no to,
Right.
or asking for permission or validation or apologizing for things, feeling this intense sense of failure if I looked around and said to my ex-husband, I'm tired. I need a break. Like somehow I viewed that as a weakness. So it was for me not one event, but
Yeah.
it was this perspective that I started to gain, and it was reinforced when I just paid attention to it.
Yeah.
And it amplified this urgency to make some changes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's what was happening for me.
Yeah. No, I understand where you're coming from with that because I feel like a lot of what you just said happened in my own life as well. And in the beginning, I couldn't put my finger on the fact, like, why am I not happy? Why am I not happy? Because picture anyone on the outside looking in would say, wow, Susan did okay.
You did okay. And I share that with you because when I look at that period of time, and that was the particularly intense period where a lot of these things were hitting me all at once, right?
Yeah.
And from the outside, everything looked pretty damn good. Family was intact, right? I was working so hard to build this intact family. My kids were thriving. My career was moving, but I just was unsettled and I just wasn't happy. But yet from the outside, I'm sure it confused people.
Yeah.
What does she have to complain about? But it was deep in me. And then when I stopped and started looking at the signs, they were all very obvious.
Yeah. Now, did you pick up signs from your ex-husband that you had like inklings that, oh, maybe he's not happy
Yeah,
either?
I did.
Yeah.
And I think what started to happen with us is we were married for 15 years. That's a long time. That's a really long time. And I would say the last 2 or 3 years we coexisted really well. Like we were really good roommates. And we loved doing things with the kids.
Yeah.
We enjoyed being together, but we weren't living as romantic, intimate, connected partners. We just coexisted. And I think if I look back at that time, those signs were there. And I think if we had been brave enough to interrogate what was happening for each of us independently,
Yeah.
and then be brave enough to raise it sooner, we probably would have made a different decision, or the timeline would have been different.
Yes.
But it was that, like, wow, we're really good friends. And then it was the question, like, could I be happier? I think I could. And then hearing that played back to me from him made me also realize, is that the best I think I deserve? Is that what I want for myself? Is that what I'd want for my boys? Having them find a partner who looks at them. When I look at my boys and I see these amazing magical creatures, right?
Yeah.
Would I want somebody to look at them and go, I could be happier someplace else?
Right.
No. Why would that be okay for me? So I think that those were the recognitions.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you have a blended family of 7
Yes.
kids and a long distance love story. It's still a long distance love story at this point?
It
Yeah.
is. It is. So we've been together for a long time, almost a decade, and it
Wow.
is still a long distance love story. And even that, so finding my guy, my Aussie man, and allowing myself to toss any kind of rule book or list that I thought like of magic ingredients that would make this next partnership work.
Yeah.
The least likely item on the list would be that we would live on 2 continents. So I just need to acknowledge that. But yeah, it's still happening. We have 7 children between us. So the oldest is 30, the youngest 2 are 15. So we've got a little bit of time before we could be together and maybe move between countries
Yeah.
more together than we do separately. But yes, it is very unconventional, and it breaks every rule book list of what makes a good relationship, but it works.
Yeah, that was my next question that I was going to ask you. What has midlife taught you about relationships that you wish you knew earlier?
This is such a great question. I'm going to tell you, and it's echoed in the exact conversation that he and I had when we first met, and we first were like, hey, we like each other. And he had the doubts. And I said this to him: I don't think we need to have all the answers. Let's just see where this goes. This is very contrary to how I live my life, right? I'm a good planner. I like a good plan. I like a lot of contingencies. And I usually don't move until I have all this built out. But in this situation, in midlife, I said, I don't need to have all the answers. I just need to have a decision. And the decision was, why not try this? Why not? So I stopped asking the question like, how is this going to work? And this is never going to work. And how this and what if and blah, 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 to why not? Why
To
not
see where
this?
it goes, right?
Why not this situation? Why not this man? Why not me? Why not our scenario? And let's just see where it goes. And that is both, I think, a testament to midlife and this reframing of things like we're supposed to do, and the good girl does this, the peacekeeper does that, and the source of comfort and the problem fixer has to take care of everything, to why not me? Why not this?
Right.
Let's just see where it goes. And I think the magic in that is I don't have to have the perfect plan. And that ingredient, I think, releasing this need that many of us women have to have a plan and have it be perfect, that released me of that. And I didn't have to have a perfect plan. I just needed to begin. And
Right.
that's what I did.
And I think midlife is the reason why things change and you're going with the flow. Let's just see what happens. Give it a chance
Let's just see
instead
what
of having
happens.
a full plan. And
Yes.
how did you meet him?
I met him through work. We'd
Okay.
been friends for a while and work friends,
Right.
work acquaintances. You can never say that word. And he was already divorced. I divorced and separated. And then about 8, 9 months later, again, just through doing work stuff, it was like, oh, like I saw him in a different way than I ever
Right.
saw him before. And yeah, and it just built from there. So it's really natural and very sweet and very authentic, but it was at the right time.
Yes, that's the
It was at
key.
the right time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the key.
Yeah.
So you talk very openly about navigating the three waves of menopause,
Oh,
including
geez. Yeah.
the rage and a whole spectrum of symptoms that many women are really very embarrassed to talk about. So why is it so important that we stop whispering, do you think, and we start really vocalizing what it is that we're going through?
Yes. So the three waves are very real for me. So I was under this misconception that once you stop your period for 12 months, that like magical, weird 12-month period, that everything is just magic. You get to turn in your card and like you're done. Turns out that is not true.
No.
Okay. Not true. And so me personally, I'm now on this third wave of new symptoms, and they're not cute symptoms. What I'm dealing with now, it was a lack of libido, just almost like a cliff drop for me. Bladder control issues, where I was like, what the heck is actually happening here? My hair is thinning.
Yeah.
Every orifice in my body is dry. Every orifice is dry. And I'm like, what is that about? But I think why it's important that we start talking about these things is that for me, leading up to that period, I again was looking around and nobody was talking. So I was suffering in silence. And I
Mhm.
didn't even know the right conversations to have with my doctor. I just went with what my mom did or what conventional wisdom was telling us at that time. I didn't even know perimenopause was a word in my early 40s. I didn't know it. And I had no definition and no reason for the things that I was experiencing. So, this rage that I write about a lot,
Yeah.
and I think my kids were unfortunately the ones who saw it the most up close and personal at a time when their lives were completely blown up. They were living with two parents in one home, this idyllic family, to then we're divorcing. Like they had no frame of reference. So my ex-husband and I had been having conversations. We recognized the pattern of behavior. To my boys, it was literally like one day their life looked like this and the next day their life was completely blown up. And here I was showing up with all of my hormonal storms and baggage, and I couldn't explain that to a 12, a 9, and a 4-year-old. That's
You
how do
couldn't
I do
even
that?
explain it to yourself, let
I couldn't even
alone to.
explain it to myself. So what I think is so great is like we're finally talking and we're
Yeah.
finally being honest and we're putting names and situations to what we're experiencing. And for me, the big benefit of that was it made me feel less alone. And it made me certain that I was not the only one that was going through this. And it gave me things that I then could look for and then decide if I wanted to go fix and solve. And I think so that's one really important dimension. And I think the other dimension, and it was, if I go back 20 years, the reason why I wrote the book was nobody was talking about this stuff. So even
No.
and no social media, but so my sample size back when I was 35 was my close set of girlfriends or work colleagues. And everybody just seemed to look like they had it all together. So then 20 years later, when I found the folder and decided I was going to write this book, I went to the bookstore. I gave myself 20 minutes in a bookstore to try to pick up books that would help me against all the subjects that I felt I was struggling with. And in 20 minutes, I had 7 books in my hand. And they were great. Some books were written by doctors, so super scientific. I'm not a doctor. Some books were written by celebrities. Great. I love that celebrities are talking about this stuff. I'm just a real girl here. I'm just trying to I'm not Halle Berry or Naomi Watts, and I'm not Brooke Shields. Some books were taking a very serious, like, doom and gloom perspective to this. And I was like, wait a second. A lot of the stuff that's happening is unhinged and hilarious. Not everything is doom and gloom. I don't want to fall into this path of, oh man, your best years are over. Good
Right.
luck. And so that also reinforced the fact that I just needed an honest perspective. And I knew if I had these stories to share and I had these questions, some of which are sad, some of which are deeply humbling, some of which are filled with sorrow and deep regret, some of them are very hysterical. I knew that other women had these stories too. And I wanted those. I needed to just amass all of these stories because it made me feel like, okay, as crazy as these waves are, as crazy as the symptoms are, we can get through this. And there are ways to get through it. And
Yeah.
so that's how I would describe my experiences. Because, man, they just the injustices just keep coming with menopause. I've got to tell you, like,
I know.
and the new one for me is the bladder control, completely crazy. Libido, last year, I had to really confront that
Yeah.
because it was a drastic change. And I didn't even have language to talk to my man about it. But I had to. And then the new one for me is I noticed my hair's thinning
Oh, yeah.
and like my eyebrows, my
Yes.
eyelashes. And I'm like, geez, like, y'all, women, somebody
How
could have
about
told us.
facial hair?
Oh, geez, don't get me
I'm
started on
ready
the
to
chin
get
hair.
an electric shaver.
I'll tell you, I purchased a nose hair trimmer because here's the other problem. I did a whole blog. So in addition to writing the book, I also wrote a blog, but I called it The Great Hair Migration because so you mean to tell me that I'm going to lose my eyelashes and my eyebrows, but yet I'm going to start growing gray hair in my nose. Why did nobody tell me about this? And I bought myself a nose hair trimmer. It, like, that thing arriving at my house, it was like the second coming. I couldn't have been, that was so excited. And I immediately, like, I sprinted to the bathroom to deal with what was happening inside my nose.
Unbelievable. The
Unbelievable.
bladder leaks.
Oh, please.
Another, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a walk on the beach? I have to put pants on because I don't know how far I could walk before I
Oh,
have
yeah.
some kind of an accident going on.
Oh, please. Or the car rides. We do a lot of road trips. It's okay. I've got a plan because, and the thing of it is, what I've noticed with the bladder, again, another blog that I wrote was because I found, like, last summer, all my friends and I were talking about were pee pads. Like, my new fascination was pee pads. But I was finding, like, when I had to go, I had to go. And even in one sitting, one potty trip, there would be like three acts. There was like the opening pee, the intermission pee, and then the final finale pee. And I'm like, my man would go, why is it taking you like 10 minutes to go to the bathroom? It's, first of all, I don't need you timing me. Never, ever do that. And do you think I don't know how long it's taken me? And second of all, do you really want me to tell you why it's taking so long? Because we'll talk about it all. But never time me, please. But it did force a little bit of planning, right? If I have to
Yeah.
go pee, it's going to be like a 10-minute exercise.
Yes. And that's the least of it. What about
Yeah.
painful sex? You used to
Oh, geez.
enjoy, and now it's, oh my God, it's razor blades.
Yeah, broken glass.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I didn't have the pain, but what happened to me last summer or last spring, it was around this time. I was with my man in Australia, and just he's noticing a change in my interest. I'm noticing a change. And so one morning, just in bed, I was trying to talk to him about this, but I couldn't really describe what was happening.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to describe it. He's coming at it from a place of, was something wrong with us? Is
Yeah.
there something wrong with our relationship? So we skirted the issue a little bit. And then in the summer last year, I like to read. He and I sometimes read books together. So I was reading, it's a book called All Fours by Miranda July. It's a fictional book. And in this book, though, there's a chart and it plots out estrogen and testosterone for men and women at various decades. So my man and I started reading the book at the same time. I got a little ahead of him. He went to London on a business trip. He calls me he's not even off the plane. He calls me when he lands. He said, "Hey, did you get to that chart in the book?" I said, "Yeah, I'm past it." He's, "Babe, I am so sorry." So it took a
Oh,
fictional book and a chart to give him a perspective on what I was dealing with and why, and to give me words to go to my doctor and explain, "Hey, I am not satisfied with what is happening here. And look, this is why I'm feeling this way." And my doctor, same doctor I've had forever, she looked at me, she said, "I know, it really sucks." And she knows my situation. She delivered all my kids. Her answer to me at that time was, "I think you and your man need to go on more dates." I'm like, "We live on 2 continents. What?" And
yeah.
that gave me the kick in the ass to fire my doctor, because I was like, this is insufficient. So I'm coming to you with my bladder problem. I'm coming to you with my libido problem. And the best answer you can give me is, "Yep, it sucks. And go on more dates?" Nah. So I fired her, found a new doctor, got put on some hormones for the first time
Yeah.
since this whole journey began. And I started those in the fall, and I'm feeling better. It's not this dramatic 180, but it's better.
Yes. Did you
But
see a functional medicine
I
doctor?
did. I
Yeah.
did.
It's crazy because that's exactly what happened with me as well. I had to go somewhere else because being told that it's normal to feel this way, I
No,
was like, no, I don't think that this is normal.
no. And then to put the problem back on me, like, "You need to go on more dates." No, I don't. And you know what's ironic is, so as I'm writing this book, it's not just for women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, but women in their 30s are reading this book. And I happened to meet a woman who was in her late 30s, and she was starting perimenopause again, but not having the words, just having a set of symptoms.
Right.
She goes to her doctor's, "I know what we need to do. I'm going to give you Prozac." And I'm like, wait a second. So the first course of action is not to look at her and go, "Let's think about this. She's in her early 40s. Her cycles are starting to change." Not to do a zoom out and let's look at this from a reproductive hormonal perspective. But the first answer to that is, "I'm going to give you Prozac," which maybe she needs, but that's the first line of defense here. And she's, "After reading your book, I realized that was not right." And
No.
she fired her doctor, found a new doctor, and they started her on something completely that had nothing to do with Prozac. And it's, oh,
They're
this is
very
what's happening.
quick to give a prescription as a quick fix to all your problems, and
But
I don't
again,
believe
like,
in it.
but to depression, like, maybe I am depressed. Cool. But is that the first place we're going to go? You're not going to actually look at what is biologically occurring inside my body. So it was just eye-opening. That conversation was eye-opening. And it made me realize I I do wish I would have maybe paid more attention in my 30s or asked more questions, but nobody around us was doing that back then.
I know. I know. So what about, because I read that you would have these 3 a.m. panic attacks
Oh
about
yeah.
dying alone.
Yeah. And look, I think that on the spectrum of, if I had to pick an end of the rope, do I tend to be a slightly more depressed person? Do I tend to be a slightly more anxious person? I am anxious all day long. I come from a long line of worriers. Okay. And when I was going through a lot of these changes, right? And grieving the life I thought I was going to live, I got married with this idea that I'm going to be married forever.
Right.
And as I got older and we had our children, I projected, what is life going to be like when we retire? How great is it going to be when our kids move out? What is this next chapter going to look like as a wife? And when that changed, the place I tend to go to when I worry is the worst case scenario. I
Yes.
tend to go there. I like to marinate in that gutter just a little bit, and then I can build myself out. But the fear was real. And it was because I envisioned my life to be partnered. I envisioned my life to be with the man that I had children with. I
Mhm.
envisioned what this next phase was going to look like. And when it disappeared, the worst place for me in my mind was then to go to, I'm just going to be alone. And that thought, and then that would bring about fears associated with, how am I going to support myself? Where am I going to live? how am I going to take care of myself if God forbid something happens and my health takes a turn?
Yeah.
And these were the thoughts that would wake me up or keep me awake.
Yeah. And they're natural. They're definitely
Yeah,
normal thoughts to have and fears that,
very scary.
yes, you can't live in a bubble and think that your life is going to be grand all the time. There's always things that will happen. And so it's normal, but it's unfortunate that as women, a lot of times we take it to the next level, and
Yes.
it could really cripple us at times as
It
well.
could. It could.
Yeah.
And I do feel like those fears were very real for me because I was dealing with all the changes, because
Yeah.
I viewed change as a failure, because I viewed different as a failure, and because I didn't know what was on the other side.
Yeah.
I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a roadmap. And all of those things just built up at a time when my anxiety was probably already high because the hormones were
Was just
swirling.
going to
It
say
just was like this
a
perfect storm.
perfect,
Perfect storm.
really, absolutely, absolutely. It's unbelievable. It's incredible that we survive it. It really is. So I
Yeah.
wanted to go on to ask you, because many women are raised to be accommodating and agreeable, right? And self-sacrificing. How does midlife challenge that conditioning?
I think a lot of us, the list of things we're supposed to be are long. The list is long, and the stories we tell ourselves are very layered. For me, a lot of the conditioning were things like I'm the problem solver, I'm the fixer, I'm the one that regulates everything, I'm the one that makes sure everybody's comfortable and peaceful. And I believe that about myself. And if I'm honest with you, if I look back, I would have thought that those were my superpowers. And so not only were those things wired into me, but they were rewarded in a lot of ways, right? If I look back at my career, I was rewarded by being the steady one, the unflappable one, the one that got things done. In my marriage, I was rewarded for being those things. And so those beliefs, those perspectives, those framings meant that I would put myself last on the list.
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes to things I didn't want to say yes to. I would apologize and ask for permission and soften my opinions. I would be small. I would shrink. I would try to just keep everything as even keeled as possible. And I think as I approached midlife, there were probably some things that changed for me. Number one, the hormones that sort of kept me quiet and malleable were leaving. That's just
Right.
what happens. Some of these hormones, they have a lot of jobs, a lot of which are to keep us nurturing, really.
Yeah.
And then I began to realize I was exhausted. I was physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally exhausted.
Yes.
And I'm like, why am I so freaking tired? It's because I'm doing this. Why am I
Right.
doing this? So I got to the point where I could start to spot these things. And I just quietly did this like inventory. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to ask for permission. I get to say no. No is a complete sentence, right?
It
I'm not
really
available.
is.
3 words. I'm not available. That's three.
Right.
And I just became intolerant of the things that I was carrying and the load and the responsibilities and the fact that my existence felt like it was at the expense of myself, but to keep it was like contorting myself to keep everybody else happy.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is enough. This is enough. And what was happening though, leading up to that was and I found this echoed from a lot of women that I talked to for the book and also the experts. When we find ourselves in these positions, the adjacent story that we start to weave about ourselves is that we're just not enough. I'm not giving enough. I'm not trying enough. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough.
Yeah.
So then the I'm not enough means I just need to do more. Just keep piling it on, keep piling it on. And that's I am enough. And no. And just no. Just no.
Yes.
But that I think the wiring is very deep. It's based on stories that other people tell about us. It's based on stories that we internalize, and it becomes the frame through which we see everything around us.
Hmm.
And it conditions many of us, not all of us, but many of us, to be small, to be the regulators, to be the peacekeepers, to be the problem fixers, to be the quiet ones, to be the easy ones, the ones who don't cause grief or don't cause problems.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that load can be debilitating if you
absolutely.
let it.
But also, midlife is also a time for a lot of women where they feel the most powerful.
Yeah.
Once they get past the hormonal changes and it starts to settle in, especially if you go on bioidentical hormones and you start feeling more like yourself again, you
Yeah.
realize that this is a really powerful time in my life and I could do a lot.
Absolutely. And I think it is like we get to this point where we feel better, but also we're just tired, and we start to notice that, look, chances are we were not the only problem in these scenarios.
Right.
Chances are saying no, like the earth isn't going to open up and swallow
Right.
us whole. Chances are, if we're sitting in a work meeting and we have an opinion, we can voice it. You're not going to get fired for voicing an opinion. Chances are, when you feel tired, asking for help doesn't make you weak or lazy. Chances are, when you ask for help, somebody's going to step in and do something different. So we become intolerant of just taking it, of just eating it, of just sucking it up, because we are so exhausted, because the hormones that keep us nurturing and malleable leave the building, and because we decide that we get to take up space in our own life. Like, I get to say no. I don't, oh, why do I have to say no and then write a dissertation about why I'm saying no to something?
Right. You have to justify, you feel like the need to justify every decision that you're making when you don't.
You don't. Just,
It is what
yeah, it is what it
it
is.
is.
And no is a full sentence. And so I think we
Right.
just become the awareness of these realities that were always there. The biological, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual lenses that we've held onto are changing. And we become more aware of our place in our own life. And then I noticed, for me and a lot of the women in the book, then we become intolerant. Then it's like, no, I am not doing this. I need a break. I need a rest. I'm not available. I don't agree. Like, these are sentences. They're not blowing up our lives. They're asserting our
Yes.
position in our life.
Yes. But for women who feel invisible, because a
Mm,
lot of women do,
yeah.
what would you say to them?
I would say I totally can understand how we are conditioned to feel that way. And I would also say that in the times when you feel like that, remember, you don't have to blow up your life. This is not about making changes in every dimension, but it can start with something as simple as a sentence. So quiet the noise. Ask yourself, what is making me feel invisible? Am I holding on to an old belief? Am I scared to start or reclaim or claim something that I really want in my life? And then what I found for me personally is saying the thing I feel or saying the thing I want out loud, even if it's in an empty room to myself, it changes my thought pattern. And I'm not a doctor, but I learned that when you say what you need or say how you feel out loud, even if it's just to yourself, that act of saying something out loud interrupts a pattern, a brain pattern. And when you interrupt a thought pattern, that can change the next set of actions that become interrupted. And so even that act, it could be, this happened to me the other day. Like, I was super frustrated because I was feeling like I was like running around this house like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to pick things up and clean up. And I came in my office, I was home by myself, and I sat in my office and I said out loud, I'm done cleaning. That's all I said.
That was
And when
enough.
I said that, I was like, wait a second, why am I doing all these things?
Right.
And so instead, I turned my action to making a list for my 15-year-old, and I had it on his bed when he got home. And that was a list of things he needed to do. I
Right.
didn't need to do them because I didn't make these messes. But I had to stop and say out loud, I'm done cleaning. I'm done. That's 3 words.
Yeah. Easy.
Easy. And it was, and again, it's like this. I had to stop and go, I am growing very frustrated.
Yes.
And I was frenzied. I felt frenzied. I felt very angry. I felt my anger building. I was exhausted. And I had to stop and go, something is happening for me. What is happening? And when I did that, and I was like, wait a second, I know what's happening. And I had to say the thing I wanted. The thing I wanted out loud was, I'm done doing this. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And then it changed my thinking. I felt my body get calmer. I literally, like, I felt my shoulders roll back and
Yeah. Take a deep breath,
took
right?
a
And
deep breath. And I
release.
was like, I'm
Yeah.
done with this. And then it forced me to take the next step, which was, I'm making a list for the 15-year-old. And then that's what I did. And the
And
rest
you
of the day
felt
was
so
super
much
pleasant.
better, right? You felt better.
I felt lighter.
Yes.
I felt calmer. I was standing up straighter. And I was really confident in the next action that I took. And when he got home, it wasn't this big dramatic fight. It wasn't me pleading with him to do the things. I simply said, you'll find a list on your bed. I expect you to start working on this list in 20 minutes and let me know when it's done. That was it.
Beautiful.
It was so liberating.
Yes. As simple as that.
Cool.
That's wonderful. That's great advice. That
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one final question,
Yes.
and that is, what advice would you give your 40-year-old self today?
Okay. I wish I could just say one thing, but I'm going to say a couple things.
Okay.
The advice that I would give my 40-year-old self is, remember, midlife is not a crisis. It's not. It's when you're going to get real clear on a lot of things. I would tell my 40-year-old self that you're not falling apart, even though there were days where I felt like I was. And I would tell my 40-year-old self that you're not alone. And you never were. This is not just you. And I think I would also remind her gently that there's going to be a lot of things that are going to change for you in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. And your body's going to change a lot faster than your mind.
Yes.
And I would tell myself that you don't have to hold on to all these stupid stories that you believed about yourself or people believed about you. Like, those are not gospel. You get to decide what you want to be true. You don't have to live by those stories that other people crafted about you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be silent
Right. You
about
need
what's
to
happening for
step
you.
into your power
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Yes. And speak up for yourself, probably
Speak
for
up.
the first time ever.
Yeah.
You finally
Yeah.
feel like you found your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also remember that no is a complete sentence.
I love that. I have to
Just
use
know.
that.
Just know. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Angela, this was great. As I was reading the book, I was like, I feel like she's one of my friends that I grew up with in Brooklyn, like a just typical, easy to talk to. And sure enough, you really were. And this was a great
Oh.
conversation. I love the book. I wish you the best of luck. Maybe you'll write a sequel to this one. Who knows?
Who knows? Thank you so much. It makes me feel so good that you've read the book and that you loved it.
I
And
did.
really, thank you for having me on today. It was such a fun conversation.
It was for me as well. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
I love how Angela reminds us that midlife isn't something to fear or try to hide from. It's a time of awakening, a moment when many women begin to see clearly, perhaps for the very first time, how much their lives have been shaped by expectations that were never truly their own. Midlife can bring challenges, yes, changing bodies, shifting relationships, and sometimes unexpected life transitions. But it can also bring something incredibly beautiful, the courage to finally live authentically. Angela's message is a powerful reminder that we don't have to shrink, settle, or apologize for who we are becoming. In fact, this stage of life can be when we step fully into our wisdom, into our confidence, and our truth. If today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to check out Angela's book, Real Girl's Guide to Midlife, right here. As you can see, I have all kinds of sticky notes where I jotted down some great information. So the book is something that she shares even more of her own insights, her humor, and also her hard-earned wisdom about navigating this incredible season of life. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who may need to hear this message. So many women are walking this journey, and sometimes just knowing that we're not alone can be incredibly empowering. Thank you for tuning in to Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul, where we explore what it truly means to heal and to rejuvenate your health in mind, body, and soul. Until the next time, remember to take time for yourself, honor the wisdom of your body, and continue becoming the beautiful, powerful woman that you were meant to be. Have a beautiful rest of your day.